All right, let's dive in. Today, we're cracking open a case file on a tiny saboteur that's putting one of the world's favorite foods at risk. Think of it as a global agricultural heist, and we're on the case. So just imagine for a second a worldwide plot, not against a government, but against the tomato. I know, it sounds a little bit like a movie, but this is a very real threat, and it's happening right now in fields all across the planet. So, our investigation starts at the scene of the crime. But this isn't just one location. It's a massive agricultural crisis that's putting global food security on the line. And here is the evidence. Just look at the difference between a healthy, vibrant tomato leaf and the ones that have been just ravaged by pests. You're seeing everything here, from bacterial spots to black mold. This is exactly what farmers are up against, and it is putting a huge strain on our food supply. You know, this is about so much more than just one type of produce. The tomato is a cornerstone of cuisines and economies literally everywhere. So when the tomato is under attack, it creates this ripple effect that, believe it or not, eventually touches all of us. So, who's our number one suspect? Meet Tuta absoluta. It's a tiny little moth, but don't let its size fool you. Its larvae are incredibly destructive. See, they don't just chew on the leaves, they actually burrow inside them, creating these little tunnels or mines that destroy the plant from the inside out. The result? Absolutely devastating crop losses. This timeline here shows just how fast our culprit went from being a local problem to a global menace. It started in South America, but then in 2006, it somehow hopped over to Spain. From there, it just exploded across Europe, Africa, and Asia. What makes this pest so dangerous is that when it gets to these new places, it often has no natural predators. That allows it to become a full-blown superpest in just a couple of decades. Okay, so if you want to catch a criminal, you've got to understand how they think and how they operate. It's time to build a profile of our target. This pest has a four-stage life cycle. It starts as a tiny egg on a leaf. Then it hatches into the larval stage, and this right here is where all the damage happens. After that, it pupates in the soil, and finally it emerges as an adult moth, ready to start the whole destructive cycle all over again. This chart basically shows us the pest's MO, its modus operandi. You can see the female moth has this overwhelming preference for laying its eggs on tomato plants, and to a lesser extent potatoes. It's a specialist. It knows what it wants, and it's locked on target. And here is the real kicker. Under the right conditions, Tuta absoluta can pump out 10 to 12 generations in a single year. That's a brand new wave of attackers hitting the crops almost every single month. It is a relentless, non-stop reproductive machine. So the sheer scale of this problem is, well, it's staggering. And our traditional ways of spotting these pests are just not keeping up. But now we've got a new detective on the case: artificial intelligence. Let's just compare the old way with the new. On one hand, you have traditional methods. They're slow, they take a ton of manual labor, and they're prone to human error. That often leads to just spraying way too many pesticides. But on the other hand, you have AI. It's automated, it's incredibly precise, it gives you real-time analysis, and it lets farmers make these targeted, surgical strikes against the pest. So how does this actually work? Well, it's kind of like training a detective with superpowers. First, you feed the AI thousands and thousands of pictures of both healthy leaves and damaged ones. A deep learning model then analyzes all those images until it learns the unique visual signature of Tuta absoluta damage. Once it's trained, the AI can look at a brand new photo and instantly spot an infestation, often long before a person could. And just how good is it? Get this. Research shows these AI models can achieve an accuracy rate of up to 99.53%. That is an absolutely incredible level of precision that could be a total game changer for how we protect our food. So now that we have AI spotting the enemy, we can launch much smarter, more effective counterattacks. Let's take a look at some of the cool strategies being used on the front lines. You know, it's not about finding one single magic bullet. The best strategy is something called integrated pest management, or IPM. It's a holistic approach, a multi-pronged attack. It's being used really effectively in places like Nepal, and it combines a whole bunch of tactics, like using special traps, physically blocking pests with nets, and even using natural predators to fight back. Here's a closer look at one of the key tools in that IPM arsenal. This is a pheromone trap. It releases a chemical scent that mimics the moth's mating signal. The moths get lured in, and then, boop, they get stuck. It's a really clever way to monitor and reduce the pest population without spraying harsh chemicals everywhere. A huge part of IPM is using biopesticides. These are basically pesticides that come from natural stuff, plants, bacteria, you name it. They're a much more eco-friendly option because they're designed to be really targeted, taking out the bad guys while leaving the good bugs alone. Okay, now for something that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. Scientists are actually using nanotechnology to fight back. This chart shows the unique chemical fingerprint of special nanoparticles made from seaweed. When you apply these to a tomato plant, they act kind of like a vaccine, kicking the plant's own natural defenses into high gear and making its leaves tougher and way less tasty for pests. So we've got AI detectives, we've got nanoparticle shields. It sounds like this case is pretty much solved, right? Well, the future of this whole battle is actually a little more complicated. We have to remember, all this farming happens in the real world, not in some high-tech lab. In a lot of rural areas, especially in lower-income countries, there are some pretty major roadblocks to using these tools. We're talking about things like spotty internet, a lack of reliable electricity, and of course the high cost of all this new tech. And this quote from the research really just hits the nail on the head. An AI that's trained on perfect, clean images from a lab might completely fall apart when it gets out into a real, messy farm with shifting light and weird camera angles. The tech has to be tough enough to handle the real world. And that brings us to the final and most critical question. This is basically an arms race. As our technology gets smarter, pests like Tuta absoluta are constantly evolving and adapting. The challenge isn't just to catch up. It's to stay one step ahead in this never-ending fight to keep our global food supply safe.